All right, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have on the program Jodi Scott. She is the co-founder and CEO of Green Goo. Welcome to the show, Jodi.
Great to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Today we're going to talk a lot about skincare and plant-based first aid and all types of things that are good for your skin, right?
You got it.
So first, I think it's important to establish that people don't realize that the skin is the biggest organ in the body and is actually the first line of defense for pretty much everything that's trying to get at us in this day and age. So, would you agree that the skin is the largest organ in defense?
You got it.
Why don't you speak to a little bit about how that really can affect one's health when they are not using, let's say, a product that a lot of times the products we're putting on our skin are actually making it worse, not giving us defense. Is that fair?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's so much to unpack there. so so yes, I think that we've just been told our skin is this thing that protects the organs that are inside, and it's just as simple as that. And our skin is rich in neurotransmitters and very connected to our nervous system, our immune system, our mindset. And it's clearly absorbing in incredible rates what's going to systemically go into our bodies. And so, oftentimes what we've been used to using, we haven't really understood the ramifications. So we've just said, hey, if we've got a cut or a scrape or some kind of rash, we go to the over the counter solutions and we apply whatever that product is because that's what we've been told that works. And then in that, we are also introducing things like paraben, petroleum, phthalates, endocrine disruptors that are making our body have to work harder, even though you thought you were bringing a solution. And that really is what drove us to create Green Goo because I got my master's in health psychology. I was pre-med and I specialized in psychoneuroimmunology and really saw the relationship of our mind body interconnection. And then my sister's an herbalist and a midwife. And my mom's a self taught computer programmer, website developer. So it's always good to have that techie person in the group. And we saw that the natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they were told that these chemical laden products were the only products that could get the job done. And what's really interesting is chronic skin conditions are at an all-time high. And the efficacy for the traditional, solutions is pretty mediocre. So the conventional consumer is like, I don't care what the ingredients are. I just want something that works better because I'm told I can only use this thing for 7 to 10 days. And if symptoms persist, I have to go see my physician, which is inconvenient and annoying. And so we thought, well, let's bring a plant-based solution that's superior in efficacy and also sustainability. And then let's start to educate and inform the value that our skin is and has in our performance, our longevity, and our happiness. And so Green Goo was born.
And if I remember in some of the materials I read, you started this where you're drying your own herbs at your
Yeah.
house on the screens. Out, is that correct?
Yeah, so we had a garden and bees, and we're growing all of the herbs, and then we're drying them on big screen doors. So we had them layered on our front porch, and people would walk by going, "What are they doing?" And it was layer after layer of plants drying, and then our kitchen became a production facility, and then we had these big like jars that we were infusing in outside and doing the sun and the moon cycle. And it's really important to protect the integrity of the plant because oftentimes what you see with even natural products today where that efficacy gets questionable is because the plant compounds are being compromised, right? Because they're either being exposed to chemicals or high heat or alcohol that changes the efficacy of the plant. So we really want to protect that when we're creating this botanical profile. But our kitchen became so packed with production that we had to take our camping equipment and build an outdoor kitchen for us to cook our food in because production was just what it was.
Sure, as you grew, things had obviously you have to take it to another level because it's just getting beyond what you could do in the little small area that you probably worked with initially.
Yeah, and that was the trick, right? Was we didn't want to change the efficacy. Here, we were getting our proof of concept. Our customers were raving about it. They were meeting us at the farmers market, telling us their son who had eczema, was now not embarrassed to go to school. And this was the first time there was a solution that was working, or people who had chronic pain or various injuries and they're out enjoying their outdoor activities again. And so, as we're thinking like we can't manage this production, but we need to go to a place where they're going to honor the process. And that was the trick because it isn't a common standard manufacturing SOP, right? And typically when you scale, the first thing that they ask you to do is cut corners and use different ingredients or use different suppliers. And so it actually took an individual whose son had eczema. He tried our product, he tried Green Goo, and came back and said, the world needs us because this is the first time his son has had an over-the-counter solution for his eczema, and he's like, "We're gonna scale this." And so we were able to build a dedicated team with a dedicated line and a dedicated process and control the supply chain process as well to protect the integrity and therefore the efficacy.
Yeah, and when you speak of the effective reaction or positive reaction of the product, like you said, as soon as the company gets bigger, the first thing that usually goes is we're going to kind of find a different way to do it than the way we did it in the past, even though the way in the past was working and was a more natural way of doing it, like you said, not instituting all these other chemicals or changing the formula. But the first thing that usually goes is they want to change how the product's made, and you were able to retain that with your company.
Absolutely. And fast forward, 15 years later, here we are in a very similar situation in the sense of the cost to produce has skyrocketed, including sourcing. And what most people are doing is increasing their prices or they're changing the quality of their products. And so what we did at Green Goo is we didn't change the process, we didn't change our sourcing, we didn't change anything about it other than how we're doing business. So where we were in more retailers, we're in less retailers, and we're making sure that we can still keep the price point where it needs to be because perhaps that retailer charged more vendor trade expenses or what have you. And so we had to make cost changes in other places in our business to make sure that we could still bring the quality product at a reasonable price to the end consumer.
Sure. Instead of cutting costs in the product manufacturing, we're going to find other areas to cut costs, but keep the product the same.
Exactly.
And that's rare for products, to be honest with you, because as they get bigger and they scale, they typically, like you said, find ways to cut corners.
We feel passionate about the efficacy and the authenticity. I mean, we really forged the path for the plant-based renaissance, very much specifically in the first aid space. I'll never forget going to a first aid pharmacy buyer and I'm like, I've got a plant-based Neosporin. And he just about fell out of his seat. He's like, what does that even mean? And today we use that term interchangeably. Plant-based is a very common term, but it wasn't when we first started. And I was telling someone on an interview the other day, what they asked me, like, what was the shift in the market that had people really understand green goo and plant based first aid? And honestly, it was the hemp industry because here we had been producing and extracting from plants long before the Farm Bill was passed. And I was constantly trying to explain the process. I mean, that pharmacy buyer went home and used the product, came back and was like, I love it because the proof is in the use. And he moved forward with putting it on the shelf. But it had to go through that anecdotal experience, right, for him to have that validation. And so I'm at a pharmacy conference and the lunch symposium is how the Farm Bill was just passing, how retailers could get behind the hemp products and understand what the process is, what the regulatory is, so they can bring it on the shelf. And in that, they explained how hemp was processed and put into various kinds of goods. So when they came back after lunch and the first buyer came over and I said, you know how they talked to you at lunch today about how they extract from hemp? That's what we've been doing at Green Goo from plants, but there's no hemp in any of this. And all of a sudden, it was like the light bulb went off. I was like, oh, plants can help as a pain relief. Plants can help as anti-aging. And it just really opened up that knowledge and understanding.
Well, and people have been using salves and natural plants for pain relief and other skin issues and all kinds of health, changing someone's health outcome for centuries, right? So, I mean, this is just getting back to the way we used to do it.
Well, our mission is spread goodness, and it's not just spreading good products on your body. It is how you build a community, how you interact with your peers, and being good stewards of the environment. So it's just spreading goodness in all forms. But then our mission is, or excuse me, our vision is bringing forward time honored traditions. And that is what Green Goo is. This is an old process that we are just scaling and preserving, and we've known that these plants have medicinal components and have inspired modern medicine today. So we're just bringing that back forward. And now the FDA is recognizing herbs in the same form that we look at sort of modern OTC products. So Green Goo is registered with the FDA, and we're able to call out specific herbs as having specific active ingredients as a result of the research and the data now that is available, that the FDA is supporting, which is fantastic.
So, when you find what's the thing that you find, what's the hardest thing to convince people of when you're trying to explain the product?
I think efficacy will always be first and foremost because, if you have poison ivy, you want that solution to work immediately. And I think in the natural channel, the natural solution has often been a compromise, meaning I'm choosing this not necessarily because it's going to work better, but because I believe in clean ingredients for myself, or I believe in clean ingredients for the environment, but I know it's not going to work as well. And a lot of that is because perhaps that herb, that we'll call it arnica, right? Some of the pain topical analgesics that we're more familiar with, they've been on the market for a while, but they're also mixed with a petroleum emollient that's next to it. So it's sitting on the surface of your skin instead of something like beeswax, which actually helps bring the moisture into your semi-permeable membrane, or some of these plant-based oils. And so you're getting kind of a half natural version of the plant, so the efficacy is in question. But nothing makes me happier than I get a conventional consumer who has never been interested in plant-based or natural. But for example, they had poison ivy for 6 months and everything over the counter doesn't work. They got to go to their physician. They find it inconvenient and they're like, what the heck? I'll just try Green Goo because I've tried everything else. And they're like, it's gone in 2 days. What else do you have? This is the first natural product. So it is fun, inviting people over into a more natural journey than they have before.
Sure. How does it differ? Obviously, CBD products are very, very popular in the world right now. And what I've noticed with most CBD creams and those type of things is you do smell that because it is a mixture of CBD and other things that you just mentioned. So you do sometimes, most times, get that little bit of smell that it just smells like it's definitely not natural. How does your stuff differ from that?
Well, a couple of things I want to say. So there are naturally occurring cannabinoids and a lot more than just hemp. So echinacea and black pepper, even cantaloupe has naturally occurring cannabinoids in it. So it's fun that the hemp plant gets all the credit. Now, from a plant perspective, Green Goo will have an herbal scent to it because it's actual plants. That's why we named it Green Goo, because when you open up the tin or the jar, more often than not, it has a green or a yellow hue depending on what plants are in there. And, with that, it's interesting because you kind of, when you're used to the conventional OTC products, when you smell a petroleum based product, you used to think that that was what it should smell like. You open up a Vaseline or a Vicks Vapor. But when you start using a clean product that doesn't have paraben, petroleum, the phthalates, you'll actually, it's like your body knows it's good. You're like, oh, my body says this smells good and wants this. And you'll start to repel the sense of some of the more synthetic ingredients.
Sure. So the person notices right away that's it's different.
Exactly. And your
When
body gets to know it and wants the good stuff. Once you're giving yourself, it's like the more you work out, the more you crave it. The more you're giving yourself, healthy, nutritive resources, the more your body responds to it positively and wants it more.
Yeah, and I talk about that a lot when we try to get people to eat more natural foods that were designed to eat. The more of those that you eat, the more of those your body will crave, and when conversely, when you eat the bad foods, you're going to crave those as well. So pretty
Mhm.
much the same thing with the things that we're putting on our skin.
Absolutely. And
So
I'll
is Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say with green goo, one of my favorite rituals is, and someone really coined this well for me. It's the sanctuary, which is rather than just putting the green goo on your rash or what have you, it's like feeding your entire epidermal layer. And so on a Sunday, after a workout, I'll go and I'll put the salve on. Maybe it's the pain relief because I want to manage inflammation, or it's the repair because I want a deep hydration. And I butter up and I just like salve up, butter up from head to toe, put my bathrobe on, let my skin drink it up. And I'm really intentional. I have tea, I read, I just really just like have a moment, let that 30 minutes of your skin just drink it up. And then you get dressed, and maybe it's the end of the day and you go to bed or you go into your day. But either way, you sleep better and you just feel different. And you'll start to feel like back to that saying your body just wants more. The other day I was just putting some salve on my feet before I went to bed. And then all of a sudden, before you knew it, I had salve from head to toe because it was like my body's like, nope, I want this. And it just feels so good. And you have this like mindset shift because you're like, your immune system is in favor, your nervous system is in favor, you're working on that vagal tone, and it all just works really well together.
Yeah, when you talk about the because you have more products than just pain relief and inflammation. Like you have lip balms, you have deodorants. So speak a little bit more about the other products besides. And I know inflammation is a hot topic, and that's what most people are reaching to the counter for is something to help with inflammation. And I try to focus on the cause of the inflammation. Grabbing a salve and putting it on your wrist because your wrist hurts is great to relieve pain in the moment, but we do have to dig deeper and find out, well, what's causing that from the inside. But you have a lot of other products besides pain and inflammation products. Speak to those a little bit.
Well, the deodorant's really fun. And what I love about the deodorant is when we were developing these formulas, we're always looking at the transdermal absorption. And under your armpit is a really unique and different looking skin. And it absorbs about 70% of what you put in there. And of course, it's very connected to your lymphatic system. And so, of course, the talk has been what not to put in your deodorant. So, of course, you want to avoid aluminum, which is just one of many ingredients that you want to avoid in your deodorant. The aluminum is just kind of the more hot topic one. Um, but what's really interesting is thinking about the ingredients that you could put in there. Because here you've got this like portal, if you will, into your system. Why not make that a more nutritive resource? So our deodorant has all kinds of adaptogens, ashwagandha, holy basil, functional mushrooms, vitamin C, ginkgo biloba. And so we just thought, well, let's do more with that. And then again, kind of that notion of like your skin and your body will crave the things that are good for you. Your armpit kind of changes the way it operates because when you're putting things in your armpit that it doesn't want, you actually find that you sweat more and you have more odor. But what we're finding with our deodorant is that like your chemistry is changing and you just don't sweat as much and you don't have that odor and the skin is just like, okay, this is good stuff. So the deodorant's really fun. And then we also expanded into sexual wellness, which is super fun. And we saw a lot of the same parallels that, the consumer was just assuming that these ingredients were okay, and they were generally dissatisfied with what was available. And what you'll find is a lot of the lubricants and intimate products, they're actually pulling the moisture out of your skin. And then the glide is really not lasting very long. And then by pulling the moisture out of the skin, you're changing the sensitivity. And so here with Southern Butter, that's the brand that we developed, you're like nourishing the skin, you're hydrating it. We brought the herbal infusion. So you're getting the calendula flowers for like antifungal, anti-yeast, antimicrobial, but also tissue repair. So you increase the sensitivity by nourishing that skin, and then that's more fun. And then the glide is longer too. So it's a really fun brand.
Well, I like one thing that struck me was, which I think is an amazingly profound point, is that you have the armpit, which is like a portal, like you said. So yes, we're going to make sure we're not putting chemical. If we're going to put something in our armpits, deodorant wise, we're not going to put chemicals in it. But we have this opportunity, so to speak, right, to be able to put some other things in there that could actually do well with our bodies as well.
Exactly. So why not?
Why not? No, great. I love that. That's great. That's great. And I've used natural deodorant product here for probably 2 years now. And you are right about one thing, is that there's been days when I haven't put any on for 3 days and I did not even need it. And I kind of laughed and thought, well, maybe I don't need it at all. Because I think if we all look back to like our ancestors, nobody was putting deodorant on their armpits, right?
No. And it's so interesting because like I was going to a conference and I was like, "Oh, what if like I'm speaking and what if like I need a traditional deodorant just to be safe." And so I used it, and then my goodness, the next week I stunk. Like I was like, this is a new smell. And here it was, like my body detoxifying and getting rid of it. And it took me about a week to get back on track again. And I was like, okay, I'm good.
No, it's interesting you say that, because I agree. I don't really need deodorant, and when I've gone a couple of days without it, there was no odor at all. The one time, which kind of speaks to this whole point, is that there was one time where all of a sudden I started having a little bit of odor to me, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and I traced it back to a protein powder that I was
Yeah,
consuming, and it was giving me an odor of some sort, and I couldn't place it. And I finally tracked it back to a protein powder, because chemicals and things that don't
mhm.
belong in our body upset the pH balance of the body, correct?
Absolutely. And it's so interesting how your armpit can be a communicator for you, especially stress, hormones, and
Yeah.
and in many ways, when you think about like how to calibrate your nervous system and getting into a place where things are harmonious, and it's hard, like getting used to getting present and feeling that in your body is very similar to also paying attention to like, oh, I'm in a state of fight or flight a lot, and my armpit is communicating that to me. So now I need to kind of like level set, you know, tone things down a bit, look at my diet, make sure I don't need to do like a quick detox. Am I drinking enough water? And those are things you want to have as signals, so you as a human can make the changes you need to make so that you can have longevity and you can have wellness, because you don't want to ignore those signs, because it's over time that's when your telomeres get compromised. All of a sudden you have massive oxidation, you have disease that you invite. And so we've done this thing of like reducing the signal instead of really like leaning into it.
Yeah, and we talk about that all the time on this program, about pain, rash, itchiness, dry skin. Like, these are all signals from the body. These aren't the cause. These are the symptoms. These are the signals of the body saying, "Hey, something that you're doing is not what I'm not liking this, and I'm just going to give you this sign: the blotchy skin, the redness, like you said, the dryness, all these things, signals, right?"
Yeah. And you can do things to prepare yourself for difficult times too. So that when you know you're going to be like, okay, this, I am going into, a really stressful week or what have you. There's things that you can do to lead up into it, whether it is related to your food, your diet, your sleep, and getting you set up for that. Because your body is resilient, but at the rate at which we can push it, um, you know, we got to give it a little love.
Yeah, yeah. Well, talk about, you have some daily practices I think that you, like to promote as far as, you know, fighting inflammation that everyone's dealing with every day. So what are some daily practices that you like to promote?
So I have a couple different things. One, I was taught to invest into my, we'll call it like my emotional intelligence the same way as my physical uh, workouts. So the same way you go to the gym and you exercise, the way you can really work on that mind body connection is through different presence exercises. And you don't have to meditate 2 hours a day to achieve what you need to, like, reduce the cortisol, get that immune system, not hyper vigilant, and, really, fine tune that vagal tone, which is basically that resilience of being able to bounce back. And so throughout the day, and I went to, like, I'll call it, I had a coach who put me through this camp, where every 3 hours I had to set my alarm and I had to do a presence exercise for 30 seconds to 2 minutes and do that for 2 months. And all of a sudden you feel that muscle, and I'm using the word muscle loosely because I'm not sure how I would define it. But you find yourself recognizing what it means to, like, get your body into a state of peace, so that now when I'm in a moment of hypervigilance or overdrive, I can actually recognize it, and I can pull myself back. Now, you have to continuously invest in that so that that muscle stays strong the same way you do as you go to the gym. And you'll find, like, if you haven't done it for a while, the same way if you haven't worked out in a while, you're like, "Oh, I'm having a harder time." But it's so important, and it's simple. Like, it's like taking a couple deep breaths and just, like, letting your mind rest for a minute. It could be listening to the birds outside for 30, 45 seconds, looking at a horizon, feeling your feet on the ground, like, very simple, equitable, and that's what I love too, is it's free. You have the choice. You just have to do it. It doesn't cost you money. You don't need, you don't have to pay for a service for it. Um, and then we have an acronym in our house that we use called Shaman. And this is really important for my 14-year-old because she's like, she knows I care about a lot of these things. And it's like, Mom, how do I do all of it? And I'm like, you know what? Let's just use this as our North Star. And then you can integrate it however you wish. And so S is for sleep, adding to the sleep bank because it's so important. And you can push yourself to a certain degree, but we look at it as like a bank account. And so just making sure that you're adding to the sleep bank. H is hydration. And I mean, we are made of water. And so, and it's thinking of the hydration that serves you. That comes from not only what you're drinking or not drinking, but it's also the food that you eat. There's lots of food that is rich in hydration. Skincare that you use, rich in hydration. A is antioxidants, and thinking of antioxidants just in the general sense of nutrition, the various foods that you can engage in, or your skincare, or even like your sunlight, like, a certain degree of that is really important, and thinking about how that serves your cells. M is for mindfulness, and that just gets you back into those, like, small presence exercises. A is avoid. And I think this is really important because I think oftentimes you can't always do everything right. Like, I should be doing this, I should be doing this. If you just avoid things sometimes, even people, it's just enough. Like, I tell my daughter, maybe today is just the day you just avoid that energy drink. You didn't have to do all the right things, but you could have just avoided that one thing and that was enough.
Sure.
And then N is nature. And it's just, nature is such a gift, and it can get you present and reward you in so many ways.
Yeah, and these are all things that we used to do before we got so entangled in such a busy world and a hyper technology type of world. So we're being pulled in so many more directions now than our great grandfather and great grandmother were. That's for sure,
Truly. I
especially
mean,
with technology.
oh my goodness, and that's a great one on the avoid side, where my daughter's like, "You know, this morning, mom," and this was her on her own. She was like, "I did not pull out social media this morning. I just opened up my windows, got ready for the day." And she's like, "And I'm watching the sunrise with you as we're driving to school." And she's like, "Life is good." And she's just like learning those little micro minutes and how they can just, and then I picked her up later that day. She's like, "I had a good day. I could actually feel the difference by me avoiding that one thing this morning, and it changed my entire day."
Yeah, I mean, it's changed the way you feel. I was in the grocery line and someone had a issue with the product and the pricing, so we were waiting for that to resolve itself. And I looked around and everyone around me immediately pulled out their phone to pass the time, right? Because this is what we normally do as humans now. And I just kind of sat there and I just kind of watched and looked around and I'm like, I'm not going to do that because I just want to do something different. I mean, probably would have done it every other time, but this time I was like, and I felt weird, because like you don't see people do it. Like if you ever go to like a waiting room where you're waiting for a dentist or something, everyone's on their phone, right? You don't see someone just sit there and just kind of enjoying the moment.
Just be. Just
Right.
be.
Just be. I like that.
And then it serves you so much. And the science is there. The science backs it. Like when you can just be, you actually reduce inflammation. You reduce the cortisol levels. And so if you can think about having those microseconds, like when you were in that line, you actually served your body in a better way. And then when you have that inflammation reduction, you have increased serotonin, you feel happier. Your mindset is clearer. And then all of a sudden, like innovation comes to you, curiosity comes to you, like, I'm going to look at this label instead, or I'm going to like look outside, and it can just reward you in so many ways.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the psychological things that you talk about, the benefits.
Hmm. Yeah, it took me a long time to get to a place where I really could feel it and value it, because to your point, we're just being inundated all the time. And as an entrepreneur, the idea is that you do more. That is like what you signed up for, right? And I really challenge that school of thought, and I invite people to get present and get clear, because I find that my best ideas or problem solving comes from doing that work, instead of being in that overdrive mode where you're like your mind's racing but your body's in like chronic fatigue, and there's like this massive disconnect. You're like, I need more energy, but if I do that, like I'm, I'm gonna just keep thinking too much. And then it's like you're spinning your wheels, and it's not productive, and it clearly doesn't serve your body.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. What would you say are the top if someone said, "Okay, I wanna try your products, and I have a little bit of information, so I have a little pain once and then, but other than that, I'm pretty generally healthy, but I would like to try some more natural products." What would give me your top, 3 to 5 products that you think that someone should start with your company?
Well, number one, you want to have the Green Goo First Aid. This is your Swiss Army knife, topical antiseptic. Every household should have it. Replaces your traditional, antiseptics that you use for cuts and scrapes. But what's great about this is it's literally your first aid kit on the go. So it is for bug bites, bee stings, poison ivy, cuts, scrapes, lacerations, ingrown toenails, chafing. Like we have this first aid kit, but clearly you can't take it with you everywhere you go, but you can take Green Goo. And that's really nice to have. And once you have it, you're like, how did I not have this before? Um, for me personally, from a skincare standpoint, I have a 3-step regimen where we have an oil face wash. Uh, I think it's interesting. We're so used to using these drying sudsy soaps, and our soaps are all oil based, and so all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is so much better, because it's pulling the unnecessary dirt out or makeup off, but it's not stripping your skin layer, and it's complementing the natural biome, microbiome, and then giving all these other nutritive resources that are penetrating the skin. So oil face wash. And then I follow up. We have a rose vitamin C serum that like people literally ask me if I do Botox. And I'm like, nope, it's just this really potent botanical serum with not stripping my skin. And then I follow up with the skin repair, which was designed to be an after sun burn and scar solution. But it's so rich in aloe and helichrysum and blue yarrow. It's so hydrating. I put that on afterwards to seal in all the nutrients. But it's also a lotion alternative. That's something that you can use head to toe as a body moisturizer. So you don't need lotion. Like lotion is just, it's a bunch of filler and alcohol base. Instead, and green goo kind of goes against the norm, which is the more you use it, the less you need it. So it's not quite capitalism at its best, but at least I'm serving you guys. Give me the
Right.
good solutions. So you start out using this head to toe, call it every day. You'll start doing it twice a week. And your skin, you don't need that lotion. Like, you put lotion on, you're like 10 minutes later, you feel like you need it again. And then I love our pain relief because, again, that inflammation, I've been long before, we've been talking about inflammation. I did so much traveling. I was like 3 weeks out of every month, business trips all over the world. And when you travel, you're not drinking enough water, you're uncomfortable, you're always with an inflammation. So my way of combating that was I would always put my pain relief on head to toe before getting on the plane and just making sure that I salved up, that morning or the day before, and I was staying ahead of the inflammation. And to this day, I still just do that practice because, again, I just feel better and you feel the effects. So wonderful for after workouts, pre-workout, post-workout, injuries. But again, managing inflammation, I'm moisturizing my skin and I'm also giving it what it needs to just kind of calm it as I'm dealing with my nervous system, my immune system, and helping my mindset.
And somewhat of a preventative nature to it as well.
100%. I feel the difference.
Absolutely. The sunscreen, is that something that you recommend, or do you have a product, or what are your thoughts on sunscreen?
We do. We're not in stock today. I love our sunscreen. It only has 7 ingredients, very thoughtfully thought ingredients, because a lot of plants have natural SPF in them, including coconut oil, including calendula. And so, we blended those ingredients to have sort of a compounding skin protection. Now, what I'll say, what it was interesting in creating the sunscreen is that, first aid, we're always like, it has to perform better than what's on the market. And until, you have that formulation down, you don't go to market. Now with sunscreen, you cannot make a natural sunscreen that is going to work where you apply it one time and you don't have to apply it again to tomorrow.
Really?
And we have this idea because of these chemical laden sunscreens that have been in the market for so long that you can just put a sunscreen on and you can go out in the sun for 6 to 8 hours and it's okay. And yet the sunscreens that are on the market, I'll never forget, I was pre-med and I'm in my organic chemistry class and we're breaking down the benzo ring. And I'm like, this is a carcinogen. This is a known carcinogen. And this is before it was disclosed. And I'm asking my professor, and he's like, yeah, it is. And I'm like, how is this okay? We're trying to prevent skin cancer, but we're putting an ingredient on that actually causes skin cancer.
Right.
And he's like, well, the consumer is asking to be in the sun for 6 to 8 hours. And so this, compound or, molecule will do that, but it comes at a cost. And so it's really changing the conversation around sun exposure, which is have some sunscreen to buy you more time to be in the sun because a little bit of sun is good for you.
Yeah.
But being in the sun for that long, you just need to cover up, and yes, you can continue to reapply the natural sunscreen, but as I tell my daughter, I'm like, this is only going to get you so far. Now it's time to cover up or, go in the shade.
Yeah, nobody the human body was not designed to just sit out in the sun for 6 hours, like, in no, civilization did we ever do that. That's why they have siestas, that's why they have huts, that's why when you go into Punta Cana or anywhere, overseas, you're gonna see that they all ha make shady areas for a reason.
We were underground.
Right, 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 exactly. Excellent, well, thank you so much, love all the product, suggestions for everyone. Why don't you just finish up with just a quick let everyone know where they can find your products. And I think we're going to do a an affiliate code of some sort for the listeners.
Yep. So you'll be able to go to the Green Goo website with your link, and you'll get a 10% discount. And so feel free to stock up. And we also have free shipping going on right now. So
Oh, excellent, excellent. And they can find you at what's the website address? And I'll put all the links in the description box as well.
greengoo.com.
Simple. Finally, someone with a very simple website address. I love it.
We try to keep it simple and functional.
Absolutely simple and functional. That pretty much sums up the products right there.
There you have it.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Jody Scott, for joining us from Green Goo, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.